In today's world, almost everything is digital. We watch other people's life through our phones, and in turn, we share ours. But in the dark, there is someone watching. Someone who is not one of your subscribers or followers. And he's collecting all the data he can gather. Your name, your birthday, the things you like and the things you dislike. Where you live and what your daily commute looks like. But why? What can this person want with your information? The internet wasn't always like this. It used to be slow and a lot less practical.
How you did that?
Yes, well, it's very simple really. The telephone is connected to the telephone network with a British Telecom plug, and I simply remove the telephone jack from the telecom socket, plug it into this box here, the modem.
Each visit to the internet was a separate event. Each time you visited your favorite website, you had to log in again and again and again. As you can imagine, that quickly became very tedious for people. And with that, cookies were invented. Not real cookies, but digital cookies. They were created in the early 90s to improve the user experience by allowing websites to remember certain information about users.
I think of cookies as web trackers. Think Hansel and Gretel, right? They traipsed through the forest and left little crumbs everywhere. When we go bebopping around the internet, we also are leaving little clues behind about what we're interested in. Cookies, at the end of the day, tell a website, hey, this is Savannah's preferences. Here's her login. Here's what she may have in her shopping cart.
This meant that users didn't have to re-enter information each time they visited the website, making browsing the internet much smoother and more personalized. It also meant sites started collecting certain information of people. It wasn't long before the advertising industry saw the immense potential of using cookies to personalize ads.
Pass the cookies.
In the following decades, companies started to collect more and more data. They started using third-party cookies across multiple sites.
The third-party cookies that kind of got everybody all in a tizzy, because those are used by advertisers to follow you across different websites.
I'm like, why is
Cookies weren't being used solely for your convenience anymore, but now they were used to make money. They wanted to know what makes you tick and, more importantly, what makes them click. Companies leverage this data for hyper-targeted advertising, personalized content, and product recommendations. Algorithms could predict user preferences and influence purchasing decisions more effectively. There is a big chance that you recently talked about a product and suddenly got an ad for it. Well, that's companies using your data to target you with their ads, which isn't inherently bad. Sure, it might be a little creepy, we're basically being stalked on the internet, but these companies are just identifying patterns. They recognize that users who buy running shoes often also purchase fitness trackers. And that's not magic. Even we can do it. It's like recognizing that people whose lives are a mess often become life coaches. But our data is being used and collected in a wrong way. What could they possibly do with it that might hurt you? Well, stolen personal information can be used to impersonate someone. The criminals can do things like open a bank account, apply for a loan, or even make a purchase. Data can be used to craft convincing phishing messages to send to your family or friends, to trick them into revealing sensitive information, such as passwords or financial details. Personal and location data can be exploited to stalk or harass someone. And my favorite, personal data can be used to target individuals with misinformation campaigns.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Influencing opinions or behaviors like during elections. A peak example of this is Cambridge Analytica.
So political data analytics is really using big data, using targeting and addressable advertising technology to serve increasingly relevant messages to the right audiences through the right channels at the right time.
This company gained access to data from millions of Facebook users without their consent. They used a personality quiz app that collected not only the data of users who took the quiz, but also of their friends, resulting in a massive data set. This data was used to create detailed profiles of voters.
If you're collecting data on people and you're profiling them, that gives you more insight that you can use to know how to segment the population, to give them messaging about issues they care about, and language and imagery that they're likely to engage with.
By analyzing the data, Cambridge Analytica identified issues that were important with specific people. This allowed the campaign to focus on particular topics, like immigration, jobs, and national security. If they saw that you're worried about migration, then you would mostly see campaign ads about migration.
Two fundamental human drivers when it comes to taking information on board, effectively our hopes and fears, and many of those are unspoken and even unconscious. You didn't know that was a fear until you saw something that just evoked that reaction from you. Right. And our job is to drop the bucket further down the well than anybody else, to understand what are those really deep-seated underlying fears, concerns. There's no good fighting an election campaign on the facts, because actually it's all about emotion.
Through these targeted advertisements and messages, they swayed many undecided voters. Cambridge Analytica was also involved in Brexit.
To a company called Cambridge Analytica, how this company that worked for both Trump and Brexit had profiled people politically in order to understand their individual fears, to better target them with Facebook ads.
And although using targeted ads is allowed, collecting data without permission isn't. Sadly, there are a lot of companies that collect your data, which brings me to the next part. Let's start with a quiz. Which of the following options sells your data? Shut up, it's not Google or Meta. Well, it kinda is, but not exactly. Google and Meta collect your data and then give you targeted ads. A company can buy these ads, but they will never receive the user's data. But companies like Experian, Equifax, CoreLogic, Epsilon, Oracle, and many more collect and sell your data. They collect your data from all corners of the internet. Remember last week when you clicked away that annoying cookies pop-up? Yeah, that was Epsilon, asking if they could track you. The big boys like Google and Meta do not gain anything from selling your information. They're making billions of using it for marketing purposes. It's actually the smaller companies you have to watch out for. I'm all for shopping locally, but statistically, your local bakery ran by the friendly village grandma is more likely to sell your data to a third party than Google. Of course, you can put your trust in the government. They are here to protect your interest after all. But the same government is asking questions like this.
Does Google, through this phone, know that I have moved here and moved over to the left? It's either yes or no.
Not by default. There may be a Google service which you've opted in to use, and if...
So Google knows that I am moving over there. It's not a trick question. You know, you make $100 million a year, you ought to be able to answer that question. Does Google know through this phone that I am moving over there and sitting next to Mr. Johnson, which would make him real nervous? It's his question. It's yes or no.
I wouldn't be able to answer without looking at...
You can't say yes or no.
Without knowing more details.
So here's my solution. Stop clicking yes every fucking time. You can also go the extra mile and visit all the data broker sites to fill in a form requesting they delete your information. This is a time-consuming task and it has to be repeated every once in a while.
But Jimmy, can't I just browse incognito? Isn't that what it's made for?
Well, it's partially true that incognito mode deletes the cookies of your browser after use. The website you visit still can see your IP address and thus connect to any information you've left for them to find. You could always use an VPN to hide your IP address, but many of the VPN companies collect and sell your data. Also, Google has recently settled a case in which they were charged with collecting user data of people using incognito mode. But there is some good news. Google is getting rid of third-party cookies, but we'll have to wait and see how well it works for our privacy. So if you really want to get rid of cookies, there's only one option left.